So my car thought rant for today is about some ideas that I was thinking about earlier as I was listening to a fantastic podcast, which I'm going to link in the show notes, on why it's so hard for us to admit that we're wrong. And it got me thinking about the psychology of the conductor. And I think we all know this stereotype, which is that in a rehearsal, especially for those of you who are my age-ish in that generation, we can think back to the idea that it was very difficult to challenge a conductor on musical ideas, on concepts that are happening in rehearsal, and definitely difficult to tell the conductor that they were wrong. If you remember back to the episode with Bob Chilcott, he was telling a story, I believe it was Simon Rattle, or John Eliot Gardner, one of those famous British people, being challenged in a rehearsal and how awesome and revolutionary it was for the singers in that rehearsal to have him say, I was wrong. I screwed that up. I missed that rhythm, whatever it is. And so I was going to reflect on that because I think that this is very hard for us as conductors and possibly harder for us than other professions. And so here's my theory. Everything that we do as conductors is visible. In other words, unlike many other professions, whereas if you sit in a cubicle, or even if you are a teacher of another subject where the final product of your students comes out on a test that only you see the results for, and you post it into the grade book, and the parents see their students' results, but they don't see your whole class's progress in the same way. Our product, whether we are a school teaching conductor or community or church, our product, our end result, everything in the process from start to finish is in the full public display, in full view of multiple people. Well, that puts us under a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure in a way that people who don't do what we do find that very hard to understand, okay? And so what I'm going to try to convince you of in the next few minutes is that has also caused us to be psychologically different than other people, in the sense that we are incentivized to draw what you could call intellectual fortresses around all of our positions, whether it be musical ones, political ones, religious ones, all these types of things, because it is very difficult for us to have eyes on us all the time and then be seen as wrong, okay? So I'll start by sharing my own story. I think of myself as somebody who wants to be constantly growing, constantly getting better, and constantly learning whatever it is, right? I'm a voracious reader. I'm constantly doing research on random stuff. Of course, this last year has been a lot of COVID stuff, so I don't sound like an idiot when I talk to COVID experts. I do a lot of reading on social issues because I have a lot of guests that are experts on social issues, and I don't want to sound like an idiot. But before I started doing the podcast, my outside of music study passion was economics. I love reading economics texts. You can call me weird, but I'm super weird. I love to learn, okay? But when I was 25, I thought I was already fully formed and knew everything, okay? So for those of you who are going to hear me talking this about intellectual humility, if you knew me when I was a young, mid-20s person, you're going to laugh and you'll be like, this is the most cocksure, arrogant person I've ever met. Okay, that is sometimes still true, but I'm working on it, and I've made a ton of progress, and one of the ways that I've done that is by constantly reminding myself that it's possible that I'm wrong. Okay, so I had the same conductor problem everyone else does when I was younger, and I still sometimes do, but the self-awareness is awesome because it helps you reflect immediately on the possibility that you're wrong. So in a rehearsal context, that could look like a lot of things. Number one, it could look like you normalizing, to use a currently popular word, normalizing ownership of your mistakes early on in the rehearsal process. In other words, you get to a point, and some of you guys might remember the Harry Wong book, on the first day of school, and how important it is to establish a routine at the beginning of the year. So what if at the beginning of the year, even the tiny little mistakes that the kids don't even notice because they're scared shitless and they don't know what's going on anyway, and you start right away pointing out that you just made a mistake on a rhythm, or you just sang a wrong note when you were singing something to them, or or singing something as in a demonstration and stopping yourself and saying something like, "Oh man, heck of jaw tension going on. Let me try that again. I don't want to show you guys the wrong technique," or whatever it is that you're trying to teach them, so that over the course of the school year, when the stakes are higher and that performance is coming up and you make that big mistake in a rehearsal because you're stressed and you missed an entrance or you forgot to cue the tenors or whatever it is that happens in the rehearsal, the moment where you have to encounter your own error is no longer a point of contention in your rehearsal, because the students and the singers in your choir, adult or child, are so used to that that they're just like, "Oh yeah, he's just going to make a joke about it and we're going to move on," and that also sets an example for them and their own mistakes. And you've heard me talk a lot about in the last few months how important it is to create a culture in your classroom where mistakes are not the end of the world and a mistake does not define you. Okay, so putting these two ideas together is, I think we all know these things are true, right? We know that it's true that we shouldn't beat ourselves up for mistakes. We know that it's true that we shouldn't have to posture ourselves in front of people to make sure that we look like we're right. But we also know that it's true that it's really hard to not do that, right? It's really difficult. And so my contention, I guess, in this little rant is that as conductors, we might be more susceptible to this problem than others. And of course, I'm speaking in broad brushes right now, and you can think if the shoe does not fit me, then you don't wear it, right? But I feel like I observe this behavior a lot amongst conductors, and my theory is that it has to do with the nature of our job. The eyes are on us all the time, right? So how does that translate into other things in our world? I feel like I saw this big time during COVID. We had choral directors digging their heels in immediately, along political lines, of course, and starting to find identity in their online presence with where they stood on COVID-related issues, and having conversations with them about where the possibility is that you're wrong. It didn't go anywhere, right? Because of course it's important then to be seen as correct when you say things on social media as well, right? What if that culture didn't exist? What if the culture was, "Hey, here's what I think on this topic. Poke holes in this. What am I missing? Because I think X, Y, and Z about COVID, and I'm pretty sure that's right. But you think something different. Why?" What if that were the culture, right? How amazing would that be? I see this happening right now with this boogeyman CRT, critical race theory arguments that are happening on social media. I predicted that a year ago. I said, we're going to have a huge fight over this. And I predicted this a year ago. I did an episode on this. You can find it. It's called How to Not Write Your Cancellation Essay. It had to do with Daniel Elder talking about that in his essay, where he brings up critical theory and different things. Well, I've been studying social issues with academics and talking to them about this for 10 years. I saw this term come up and I started to see immediately, because of the need to show that we're on the right side, that we're going to have people coming out in support of CRT without accurately telling you what it is, and you're going to have people coming out against it without accurately telling you what it is. Now, why does that happen? Because that is what's happening, by the way. 9 out of 10 posts I see with the word CRT in it, it becomes clear right away that that person has no idea what they're talking about in terms of the academic concept that is CRT and what it's not. Okay, so why does that happen? Well, we need to show which team we're on, and we also need to show that we're competent. We need to show that we're smart and that we know the right answer. And so what I wish that we would do, and again, this is big picture with this idea that we might be really bad at this as conductors. And again, there will probably be some people who will listen to this and get really mad because they don't like to be told they're bad at stuff. But again, that would mean that the shoe is fitting you, and you don't like that. Okay, that's fine. The shoe might not be fitting you then. You might feel like you're really intellectually humble and you might be really intellectually flexible. If that's the case, if everyone thinks that it's a good idea for us to be intellectually humble, intellectually flexible, then we have to put forth that posture. Are we attacking people online, or are we asking questions? If we're asking questions, then we are at least opening ourselves up for some type of feedback that is not going to start a fight. Okay? So I'm going to finish this. I'm almost home. So I'm going to finish this with back in the rehearsal. What if we adopted the standpoint that in our rehearsal, it doesn't matter whose idea got us to the best sound? What if it didn't matter to you at all that the end result of the choir's performance was not all your product? In other words, you had students, you had adults in your church choir, you had the professionals in your professional choir, community choir, raising their hands, offering feedback, telling you the things that you're missing, showing you the things that you are struggling with as a conductor, and or recognizing that you as the conductor just can't do it all. It is a group project. And what if you took your pride in that final performance, not from your genius that poured into the performance, but from the idea that you facilitated at the group to create something? What if that's where all of your identity came from? How freeing that could possibly be for us, and so that we get rid of this idea that the pressure is all on us all of the time. It doesn't have to be. I tell my students this all the time. When we go on stage, I am not the performer. This is all on you. By that point, I've done what I can do. I've given you the information that I can give you. It's your time to shine. Well, what if that process, and this is something I continue to work towards every school year, and I'm thinking about this for next year, how do I start that process sooner? How do I get myself out of the way sooner so that the students, the adults, can collaborate in the best ways possible? So give that some thought, chew that over, think about your own approach to intellectual flexibility, curiosity. And I'm going to leave you with this challenge. Think about 5 things that you are super confident that you know you are correct. Okay? And start to imagine what it would look like to be proven wrong on any of those things. What would it take to prove you wrong? And I don't care if it's political ideas, musical ideas, just find 5 things that you really believe in, like they are central to your ethos as a conductor, person in the world, whatever it is, and start to pick it apart. Where could I be proven wrong? What is possible that I might be missing here? Because what you're going to hear in this podcast, if you choose to follow the link in the show notes to the one I just listened to, you're going to hear a very smart guy on Intelligence Squared podcast talking about the idea that how we interact with the things we don't know is way more important than anything that we know. Because our human capacity to understand the world is so limited compared to what's actually out there. So give that a try. See if some of that intellectual flexibility feels good as you try it on, and let me know what you come up with. Thanks, guys.